Last night on the newsroom, we said internet inqilab, say no to internet apartheid. There was a massive clamor online and offline. More than 2 lakh people signed the Save the Internet petition. Well, all our combined efforts seems to have borne fruit because Flipkart, which is one of the major backers of the Airtel Zero plan, has now flipped under public pressure. They say a deeper understanding of the matter has now made them believe that net neutrality is the way to go, and these zero charge plans are actually bad for you and I.
Bowing down to the cause of internet freedom, e-commerce giant Flipkart has pulled out the controversial deal with Airtel Zero. This is the first big corporate step taken to ensure that internet freedom stays intact.
I want to share very clearly that we are not going to be participating in any zero rating program, and we'll do everything we can as Flipkart to make sure we upheld all the principles and the spirit of net neutrality.
Big telecom companies and e-commerce giants were in the eye of a storm for sealing this deal, triggering debates as to how such an arrangement will compromise internet freedom. Opposition Congress too joining the chorus.
The government of India should give policy directive to TRAI, which would be binding on TRAI in public interest, to scrap this framework, regulatory framework consultation paper which is being circulated by TRAI, and support net neutrality as the Congress party is now supporting.
But what is net neutrality? The basic premise being that all sites and apps online should be available equally to users. But now TRAI is deliberating allowing telecom companies to give preferential treatment to one site or app over another, either offering them free or at faster speed. If TRAI has its way, then you might have to pay extra for services like WhatsApp, Viber, Skype and others.
Final report is expected by second week of May. But the big question is, will the government muzzle free internet or lead by example? With camera person Sanjeev, Brijesh Pandey for Headlines Today.
So what made Flipkart flip? We're thrilled that it happened, but I want to go across to Bengaluru because joining us from there is Mukesh Bansal. He's one of the co-founders of India's largest e-commerce website, and now finally his brother and his company are on the right side of net neutrality. Well, it seems, Mr. Bansal, that Flipkart, the mighty Flipkart, has been forced to flip under public pressure.
That's not the case, right? I think there is some misconception. We have never signed up for the zero rating program. We did consider it over last few days and try to understand the ramifications of this in the long term. As an organization, we very deeply believe in the principles of net neutrality. We believe that internet should be absolutely democratic and there should not be any discrimination whatsoever. All the zero rating program was not designed to be such, but it can lead to those scenarios in future, and that's the reason we are deciding not to pursue.
I'm glad that you're saying tonight what you are, but the reality is you were willing to consider a deal which gave Flipkart an advantage over small startups, which could have been you a few years ago. You were willing to consider this deal, and it's because of the clamor that has built up that you've been forced to take back this decision.
That's very presumptive, that's absolutely not the case. I think internally we, every decision we have taken in our history of last many years, we have always tried to decide things from the point of view of consumers. The reason where Flipkart is today is because of that trust with the consumers, and we went through a fairly deep internal debate about net neutrality. We looked into history of the growth of internet, the core principles on which internet is built, and we are as committed as anyone out there to make sure that internet grows in a very democratic, transparent manner and with no discrimination whether on the data charges or by the consumers or by the companies, whether large or small. So we have always been and continue to be absolutely committed to principles of
Mr. Bansal, just yesterday, Sachin Bansal tweeted in favor of the Airtel Zero plan. You put out an entire statement saying that people were being misled, that Airtel Zero and other similar plans were actually good for the consumer. clearly, whether you're willing to admit it or not, something has changed in the last 24 hours, and surely has to be the public pressure that built up. Why don't you acknowledge the fact that because of petitions like the Save the Internet petition, because of the clamour on TV, on social media, Flipkart has been forced to go back on what Sachin Bansal said just 24 hours ago. It's not as if this debate has been going on, because just yesterday, Sachin Bansal had taken a position completely the contrary of what you're saying today.
Again, there is some misinterpretation. I think one of the things we have been commented in the past or last few days, that there's many examples of zero rating equivalent programs by various foreign companies, which continues to this day. We believe they are quite not in line with the spirit of net neutrality. We studied those programs as well, right, as we considered this, and then eventually decided to not participate in this.
Okay, you're now saying that you're committed to net neutrality and that you will champion this movement. What exactly does that mean, Mukesh? When Flipkart says we will champion net neutrality, now what is it that you intend to do?
Yeah, commitment means number of things, right? One is that we will not participate in any program or service which violates net neutrality. I think in our conversation with the policymakers and influencers, again, you will emphasize this point that we need to ensure growth of internet in India is done in an absolutely democratic manner. We'll continue to engage with our consumers and consumer advocates to make sure that any choices and decisions we take are in line, in consultation with them, and keeping consumer interest ahead of everything else.
No, so what do you now intend to say to other companies such as yourself that are still considering signing up for these zero Airtel plan type schemes, and what do you intend to say about telecom companies that are still, even now, trying to reach out to people and making it seem to them that signing up for a zero data plan is actually in their favor?
I think what I'll say is, internet has been the most democratic, force in the world over the last 20 years. We have seen massive amount of innovation, equal opportunity, a lot of growth and development for people around the world, and that spirit of openness and democracy in internet is extremely important. So no matter what policies we come up with, what products and services, all the participants in the ecosystem need to uphold the principles of net neutrality and make sure India become the shining beacon of how our larger democratic principles are also applied in how we are shaping the growth of internet in the country.
Well, I'm glad that you flipped in the way that you have. Finally, better sense seems to have prevailed. Mukesh Bansal, thank you very much for joining us. Regardless of what Flipkart is saying in public today, the reality is that the public pressure built by all of us together as a team forced this change. And that shows what the people of India can do when they decide to raise their voice. They can force the governments to weigh in on the right side, and they can force big companies to go back on these deals that they were planning to put together, which would have been disadvantageous to you and me. Internet Inqilab Zindabad.